break bread together on our knees.
Oh, and let us break bread
together on our knees.
Hello, and thanks for joining me again. This will be your lesson for Wednesday night. I hope things are going well. I hope everyone is staying well. Tell you what, let me give you a quick heads up. Turn to 2 Samuel chapter 3. And while you're turning there, I'll do a few things. Again, saw Larry Jones today. Came by the church to walk around the parking lot. He seems to be doing well, and so we're thankful for that and his improvement. But it's been good to see him up and moving about, especially after a major surgery like that. So give that little update there as far as someone that I've seen and know what's going on. And again, 2 Samuel chapter 3, and while you're turning there, give one more update. The bags with the snacks did go out Monday morning with the boxes of food that the school's given away. And we had so many people that donated for this that we're going to be able to do it 2 Mondays in a row. So again, this coming Monday, we'll send some more of the bags with snacks out. So that's been a blessing. That's been a good thing, and appreciate all that. I've been trying to figure out what to do with some of these videos, and here's one of the things I thought I would do. All this stuff with the virus has interrupted our LTC prep, and so I thought I'd give everybody kind of an insight into what we do with our LTC Bible Bowl. And of course, we're going through learning some factual things about the book of 2 Samuel. But one of the things that I'll do is I'll stop and I will just read a passage, and I will say basically, I think all of Scripture has something to teach us. It's there for a reason. It's there for a purpose. And what do you guys think? What would you do if I gave you this passage of Scripture and you had to teach a lesson out of it, or you had to bring a point, if you had to talk to the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or wherever you are in life, if you were given this passage and you had to do a lesson on it, what would you walk away with? And so we talk about that then, and we look at the various things that people see in class. And so let me give you an example of what that could look like, and we'll talk about something here. So if you were wanting to read along as I read this passage, it is from 2 Samuel 3. It's going to begin in verse 1. It says, "The war between the house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker." Okay, let's pause for a moment there and give the background on that. Saul, the first king of Israel, is dead at this time. And his son, a man named Ishbosheth, has been named king. However, as we know, if you followed from 1 Samuel, David is the one that's really supposed to be the next king, but that hasn't happened yet. Israel recognizes Ishbosheth as king, but only the tribe of Judah, which is the tribe David is from, they're the ones that recognize David as their king. And so in essence, there's a civil war going on. And this takes place over a period of time. And so that's what that first verse is relating to, is that over the stretch, David's side is winning the overall battle. And that looks like the way it's going. And then if you look at verses 2 through 5, it just talks about the sons that are born to David while he's in Hebron. Hebron is the place where David lived before he became king over all of Israel and not just Judah. So while David is there, these are the sons that are born to him. Then you get down to verse 6. "During the war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner had been strengthening his own position in the house of Saul. Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, 'Why did you sleep with my father's concubine?' Abner was very angry because of what Ishbosheth said, so he answered, 'Am I a dog's head on Judah's side? This very day I am loyal to the house of your father Saul and his family and friends. I have not handed you over to David, yet now you accuse me of an offense involving this woman. May God deal with Abner, be it ever so severely, if I do not do for David what the Lord promised him on oath, and transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul and establish David's throne over Israel from Judah from Dan to Beersheba." That expression, Dan to Beersheba, means from north to south. That's really their way of saying north to south, from top to bottom. That's what Dan to Beersheba means. Ishbosheth did not dare say another word to Abner because he was afraid of him. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to David. "Whose land is it?" Make an agreement with me, and I will help bring all Israel over to you." "Good," said David. "I will make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come see me." Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, demanding, "Give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins." And that's a story that takes place earlier in 1 Samuel. So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband Paltiel, son of Laish. Her husband, however, went with her, weeping behind her all the way to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, "Go back home." So he went back home. Abner conferred with the elders of Israel and said, "For some time you have wanted to make David your king. Now do it. For the Lord promised David, 'By my servant David I will rescue my people Israel from the hand of the Philistines and from the hand of all their enemies.'" Abner also spoke to the Benjamites in person. Let me elaborate there for a second. If you'll remember, Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin, and so is Abner. And we'll talk about those family relations in a moment. Then Abner went to Hebron to tell David everything that Israel and the whole tribe of Benjamin wanted to do. When Abner, who had 20 men with him, came to David at Hebron, David prepared a feast for him and his men. Then Abner said to David, "Let me go at once and assemble all Israel for my lord the king, so that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may rule over all that your heart desires." So David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. Okay, so I think you got the rundown there. The civil war is not going well for Saul's side. Abner is the leader, the commander of the army for Saul's side. He is accused of disloyalty, at which point he decides, "I'm done with this," and he agrees to transfer his allegiance or his loyalty over to David. Okay, so let's get the family connections down. Let's take a moment here and point out some facts, because I think when we look at some of these facts, they'll help us to understand maybe at least one of the points we can get out of this lesson. Okay, remember, Saul was the first king. He was a failure as a king. God had decided to replace him with David. Okay, and Saul and David were not related, not in any close way. Yes, they were both Israelites, but they were not related in any close way. Saul was of the tribe of Benjamin, and David was of the tribe of Judah. Okay, now Ishbosheth is Saul's son, so he becomes king of Israel. And remember, I noted earlier that now the tribe of Judah is the one that accepts David as king. And again, that's probably because David is of the tribe of Judah. So these family loyalties are very strong in terms of who you will support. But anyhow, so if you get that, David's of the tribe of Judah. Benjamin is the tribe that Saul and his family are from. Okay, and one of the things to remember is that Abner is kin to Saul. They are kinfolk. And that's probably one of the reasons why he was made head of the army. I'm sure he's a man of capability, but there's also a kinship there. So Abner is kin to Saul, and he is kin, therefore, to Ishbosheth. Okay. If you go back into 1 Samuel and look there, Abner's mentioned. He's not as prominent, but he's mentioned. In other words, Abner was there when David killed Goliath. He saw that happen. He knew that. Abner was the commander for Saul's army. And remember, at first, Saul took David into his service, and David fought for Saul. In fact, remember that chant, Saul has killed his thousands, David has killed his tens of thousands. In other words, David had more success than Saul in battle. Abner saw all this because he was the commander of the army. He was the one probably giving David the commands to go do this, that, and the other, and saw that he was successful. In other words, this is not the first time Abner and David have any history together. Abner was there when David killed Goliath. He saw that. He knew that God's hand was on him then. He saw all the battles that David won. He knew God's hand was on him then. And he knows all of this. Okay. So Abner knows that Saul has been cursed and David has been blessed. Okay. There's another story there. Remember one of the times when David had actually broke with Saul because Saul was trying to kill him? And David was on the run and Saul was pursuing him. And that night when they all went to sleep, David snuck down into the camp and he stole the water jug and the spear that were there at the head of Saul while he slept. And of course he went back up on the mountain and in the morning called attention. And in other words, the person he addressed was Abner. And he basically said, "Abner, why didn't you protect the king?" So again, Abner realizes whose hand God is upon. Okay. Now, see, this brings up the question. Abner knows all of this, and we got it in the text, but Abner's been leading this army for Ishbosheth, and he knows it's not going well. Why would he be doing this? He knows that David is supposed to be the real king. You know, remember that verse there? May God deal with Abner, and this is Abner speaking. May God deal with me, be it ever so severely, if I did not do for David what the Lord promised him on an oath, and transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul, and establish David's throne over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba. So in other words, he knows all this, and yet he continues to be loyal and support Saul's family. Why does he do this? Okay, and one of the keys we need to look at here is that in this culture, and we have semblances of this in ours, but I'm suggesting to you that it is much stronger in their culture, that loyalty to family is paramount. I mean, that is one of the first and primary things. You don't go beyond that. I mean, there's just blood is thick. It is so thick, and if that is your family, you support them, even when you realize they may be wrong. You just stand there and you support them, and you go along with them. So there's something in that culture, and I think we have shades of this today. Everybody here has experienced something where because it's your family, you'll do something for them, or you'll do something for them that you wouldn't do for anybody else, or they can get away with something that nobody else could get away with, or whatever the case may be. But in their culture, it's very strong, this idea. And if you'll remember that, he was there in the text, go back and reread it, where he talks about, where Abner says to Ishbosheth, I have been loyal to you and your family and all of this, because first of all, they're kin, and they're of the same bigger tribe, the same tribe of Benjamin. So he's saying, I have been loyal. It is loyalty that has been driving him to do all of this. That's why he continues to fight on what he knows is a losing side. Now, in other words, I kind of give these facts because and I'm not saying this is the only lesson you can get from this. This is one of the fun discussions we have in this LTC class. It's interesting to hear the different perspectives and things that people see as far as, you know what, this is what I could learn from this. But here's the thing, that if I was doing it, I would probably preach first. Loyalty is a good thing if you're loyal to the right thing. That would probably be my little catch for the sermon if I was doing this. Loyalty is a good thing if you're loyal to the right thing. If you're not loyal to the right thing, loyalty is not a good thing. So you kind of get that. You get this idea here, because again, I think in this story, what's driving Abner is loyalty to his family, to his tribe. That's what's driving it. He knows what is supposed to take place, but he's doing it this other way. There's a man named Mortimer Adler, and I came across this quote reading one of his books one time, and he said this. This is from Mortimer Adler. He says, I owe it to a friend the insight that it is not possible to be a good disciple of a false doctrine. But it must be added that it is also not easy to be the good disciple of a true one. Now, we'll unpack both sides of that as we go along, but if you got that first part of there by Adler, you've got that idea that, you know what, it really isn't possible to be a good disciple of a false doctrine, because it just puts you in a position of supporting something that's not true. And who really wants to do that? See, I would suggest to you that it was hard for Abner to go over to David. It was hard for him to do that. He knew what was on his heart. His heart had to be with his family. His heart had to be wanting this other thing to go on and take place. He would like to see the kingdom established in his tribe, not with those guys over there. But you know what? His loyalty kept holding him back. He knew what God wanted. He knew what God had said was going to take place even. And he saw it in the life of David. That's why I went back and looked at the little bit of history that we have with Abner. He knows good and well at the story of David and Goliath who the real king was. Remember when we've talked about David and Goliath before, and I've preached about that? I always make the point, who is the one that should have fought Goliath? And the answer is obviously it should be Saul. If you're going to each send a champion out there, Saul should have been the champion. The king should have been the champion for his people, and he wouldn't do it. It was David that did it, which in essence says, who is the king? It's David. It's David. If you want to look at this another way and think about it, do you notice in the story what finally was the breaking point for Abner? It's when he was accused of disloyalty. When he was accused of disloyalty and he realized that they were accusing him of this, that he then said, I'm done. I'm done. And you've probably known that feeling. See, there could be a whole lesson in there right there of itself too, of talking about this idea of what is it to be loyal and then to be betrayed. Well, that's what happened to Abner in essence, is he's betrayed. But if you'll notice in the story, it's about loyalty, because once he realizes his loyalty is questioned, he's like, I'm done. If you're questioning my loyalty, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm finished. Okay. So you've kind of got those backgrounds there. So how do we make this contemporary? And here's one of the things that I start with is, the reality is family can be a blessing or family can be a curse. They can be. There are probably people watching this can tell you all the ways in which family's been a blessing, but I bet you there's people that are watching this that can say there's other ways in which family's been a curse in my life. It goes both ways. And the reality is, and I'm not talking about perfection here. I don't have time to, if this was a Bible class, we could talk about and raise objections or maybe get some qualifications here. But the reality is, there's times in life when your family is such a curse and they're not doing what's right that you need to walk away from them. It's just the reality. There are times when family is enough of a curse that you've got to get away if you're going to make anything of your life, if you're going to do anything with it. See, that's one of the reasons why God has made a family here on earth, the church. Church is the body of Christ. See, for those who want to do the right things, they can always find another group of people that are wanting to do the right thing. Even if they're not related physically, they are related spiritually. So there's times in life when you may have to cut ties with family in order to do the things that are right. You could take this down another level. Your friends in life can either be a blessing or a curse. And if you and your friends are not making and working to make each other better, and you find out you're only making each other worse, you need to find new friends. There need to be, the friends that you need to have are people that are bringing you up and making you better. See? And see, in our story, the one that Abner needed to be with was who? David. That's what he knew this. He knows this, and he finally goes over. And I'm sure that was hard on Abner. That had to be hard to make that break and turn his back on his family and his tribe, and to do that. Now let's go back to that Adler quote. Remember how he said it's not easy to be a disciple of the truth? And the reality is it's not. It's hard to be a disciple of the truth also. But at least you're being loyal to the right thing, and that's what matters. That's what matters. Notice something else in this story. Notice how Abner also spends time talking to the others. He talks to the elders, and he goes and he talks to the elders of Israel, and he goes and he talks to the other Benjamites. And he is basically saying to them, look, you guys know what's right too. We need to all do this. And apparently he got them on board because he was able to go to David and say, we can do this. See, if you were looking at this, another very powerful lesson out of this is that very often it only takes one brave person who will stand for the truth, and then others will follow. Others will follow. Notice that with Abner. Everybody, you get the idea here. Everybody knows where this is going. Everybody knows who's supposed to be the next king, but yet there's nobody that's taken that stand yet. Nobody has taken that stand. And when you finally get that one person, that right person, that will take that stand and say, I'm going to be loyal to the right thing for the right reasons, you'd be surprised how many others will raise their hand also and say, I need to do that too, you see. And so if you want to bring it down to a very simple level, in the same way in your own life, you need to ask yourself, how can I be this person who is loyal to what is true and to right? And how can I lead others in the same way in doing that? Because every one of us has some sphere of influence that we can make an impact on. And we ought to do that. So again, if I was looking for one lesson that I would start off with out of this passage, it would be the idea that loyalty to the wrong thing is just still the wrong thing, and it's a misplaced loyalty. But loyalty to the right thing is powerful. Thanks for watching.
Bread together on our knees.
Oh, and
Let us break bread together on our knees.
On our knees, we need to fall on our knees and lift our face towards the